you know?
And it came so fast. Hey, I'm going to put you on hold for about 3 minutes. I have to do a break for the radio stations. So we'll go for another half an hour. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. So everybody, to enjoy the music, go get a cup of Java, even a shot of bourbon tonight. And we will be back, and we'll continue on.
Vamos a hacer un contrato donde solo figure buen trato. Es puro sentimiento, con todo lo que digo no miento. Te quiero dejar en lo más alto y no me jacto. Baby, te enseño a bailar lento, muy lento, bebé. Toda la noche y de esto no me arrepiento. Si él quiere algo estaré para el intento. Tú eres mía hasta...
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
Well, we are back. I got a new cup of coffee here. I'm all set. Well, actually, I lied to you. It's a cup of tea. I just didn't want to admit I drink tea. Anyway, our guest tonight is Clarence Mitchell. He runs a podcast show that you should check out. It's Closer Encounters. You should check it out. We're going to find out how to get to it. Are you there, Clarence?
Yes, I am, Gary. Thank you.
Well, how can they find your podcast, and how often are you on?
Well, at the moment, I am on Spreaker, and you can, just go to Spreaker and type in Closer Encounters Radio, and they'll find me there. I am also on Facebook, which I do a lot of live shows there, under Closer Encounters Radio on Facebook. And we have a website that is called closerencounters.space, and you can find us there.
Interesting. Have you noticed when you go live on Facebook? I know a year ago when I used to go on live, I would have like 3, 4, 5,000 people that would see my live show. Then all of a sudden it started dropping down into the hundreds. Have you noticed the same thing?
Yes and no. The one thing about live that I like about it is the fact that the interaction, with people. For some reason, radio. I mean, I love radio. Don't get me wrong, but people don't seem to interact as much on radio anymore as they do on a live show, and I think it's because they can actually see who they're talking to and what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And, of course, you got the visual effects and so on and so forth. There's so much more you can do with a live show, But I do both at the same time. So when I'm on Spreaker, I am also doing a live show on Facebook. So either way, they can still catch the show,
Oh, yeah. I play around a little bit, every so often with Facebook Live. It's just, I know it's scared I'm going to either scratch somewhere I shouldn't be scratching, or I might do something I shouldn't do, and it's going to go over because you forget about the camera being on.
Exactly.
And so I kind of, limit to, or I might have a bad hair day. I had this deal with my wife. We got in an argument a year ago. I had to go through some medical treatment. My hair fell out. And I did not like myself being bald, and I have to admit, I lost 50 pounds in the past month. I'm trying to lose weight. I was on steroids medically for a year. I got fat, and all I could see is myself as a fat old bald man. And
there you go.
And I got in an argument with my wife, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to cut my hair for a year. So now my hair has gotten long. And then we got in another argument. I said, you know what? I'm going to grow it for another year. And not get another hair. I'm going to go 2 years and see what happens and see what I look like.
Sure.
At least when I'm riding my bike, I fit in. So, what can I say?
There you go. Exactly. Well, as far as long hair, I've been long hair ever since I got out of the military back in the 80s. So, my hair's past my shoulders anyway. So,
well, they lied to me when I went into the military. I remember going through, Fort Lewis, the new recruit. And, after I got the shots, they took us to get our hair cut. And the barber, looked at me and goes, do you want your hair the new way or the old way? And I said, okay. And I know the old way was shaved. And, but they gave you at least a little bit. And I said, no, I want the new way. The new way was they made you totally bald.
That's right. Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah. So, the first thing I did when I got out of the military, I go, hey, I have to admit, where I was at in the military, having short hair like that, I kept it short because it felt good. But I tell you, I don't like short hair. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I have to agree.
Now, we got a half an hour left, or almost a half an hour. Strange guest on your show. Have you had any, without not mentioning names, but, in my case, we screen ahead of time. I even will call people up at times if I feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I'll talk to them for a while and, make a point. The show is paranormal. This is the type of, you're going to talk about, let's say, for example, aliens, or you're going to talk about, werewolves, or whatever you're going to talk about. And all of a sudden they get on the show and it's 180 degrees opposite what you agreed to have them on for. Have you had any weird cases in things where you sat behind the microphone and you go into yourself, hey, I can't say this word. I used to be able to say S-H-I-T before I got picked up on radio stations, but I would sit behind that microphone and say certain words, and I go to myself, oh my God.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's been times, the worst thing, well, I can't say the worst thing that ever happened. Actually, I had some funny ones that come on, and I used to play with them on occasion. Would be the trolls that would show up on certain shows, And you get these young kids that thinks it's cute to call in, and of course, at the time, I really wasn't screening my calls, so I would pick up any number that showed up on the screen, and I would say, area code such and such, you're on the air. And, you get these young guys that would come on and, I'm from planet Venus and I'm here to, have intercourse with your women and, that kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, and you shut them off, But, and when you're doing this live, it's hard sometimes, you either got to be quick with the button or you play along, one of the two. So it does happen. Absolutely.
Up the first year, well, almost 2 years now, I've been back on the air. I didn't take phone calls because my show is 2 hours, and I like pretty much, to use that to get to know what the guest is talking about and let them talk about what they want to, get out. And, occasionally it's funny because, like right now I've had probably during our conversation about 10 people trying to call in, and I just ignore it because I don't want to take their calls while, we're talking. So, but the night I want people to call in, nobody will call in. And I mean, I'm heard across the country on stations, nobody called. Yep. But you know what's really funny? I'll be in my studio in the morning booking guests, right? And I have my computers on, and a couple of them, like I said, I got 3 computers dedicated just for Skype. I run a total of 8 computers plus 3 servers. So I heat the house. That was bad. I suck up the bandwidth like you wouldn't believe. I'll be in here, right? And all of a sudden, I see this prefix. I don't know what it is, and it's calling in, and it's from the UK, or it's from Australia, or it's from wherever. They don't realize there's a time difference. They're hearing a replay, and they're thinking I'm on live, so they're calling up to ask questions to the guests. And it got so bad, I actually started saying, okay, well, these computers have to be off when I'm in here in the morning because I get so many phone calls. But then when I do the show and I tell people, hey, call in on this number, nobody calls in. The night I don't tell people to call in, then they call in. It's strange.
Well, the thing is, I had my whole thing, especially when I was on the other platform, excuse me, my intro was always the show where you, the caller, is, the show where you, the caller, is always the guest, And I would take anyone that called. It didn't matter because, you get people that call in and want to talk about their story or their new book or a sighting that they just had or whatever, So that's what I did, and that's how I got a lot of followers and a lot of great calls. I mean, seriously, So that was part of my repertoire, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind that, but then... when I first started out, I started a 3-hour show, but because of my health issues, I just couldn't handle doing a 3-hour show 5 nights a week. Right. So I cut it down to 2 hours, just enough time to interview people and get to know people. Like when I'm talking to you now, it's almost like we'd be sitting in the living room and you're sitting on one chair and I'm sitting on the other chair and we're talking back and forth. And that's how I like doing the show.
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah.
But I can tell you, I had this guest one.
It's definitely better. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better when you can line up somebody and have them ready, But the problem is a lot of times, well, for me anyway, it's so hard to get people committed, to doing that, obviously, for whatever reason. But hey, that's okay,
Well, I'll be honest with you. The first 6 months of when I got back on the air, after retirement, my show consisted of talking to mediums every night, 5 nights a week, because I was a new show. I didn't have much of a listenership. So it was hard to get, how can I say it? Anybody who was very important in the paranormal to come on my show. And after, after now 2 years and is the listenership I have, because of, being on radio and everything else, I have no problem. I got people wanting to come on that are very famous, which makes it a lot easier than me having to spend 10 hours a day to book 5 guests in for a week. It's so much nicer.
Yeah.
But
that's awesome. I'm glad that's happening for you. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Like I said, I went from a hobby now to a full-time job. I can honestly tell you my worst guest was when I had a person on that was abducted literally 1,000 times since she was a kid. And that she was the only one who was told about our future of Earth. And then she started talking about there's 200 or 25 million UFOs circulating cloaked UFOs circulating